Hello. The mask is back and he got bullied, son. Okay? Now, what we have is a disaster of a fight card. And starting with the first disaster of the fight card is Guram losing to Koi Fernandez. Now, I did think that he could lose due to more impactful shots, and I was right, but in the sense that if I were to pick Koi Fernandez, I would have been right. I didn't actually pick him because I thought that Guram would be better in the clinch. He had good spinning attacks, he had good elbows, he had good like 1-2s, good fundamentals even. But I knew that he was chinny, and um, even before him getting rocked and all that, fundamentally he actually didn't look as good as I thought he did with all the spinning attacks and the his basic fundamentals even. I just didn't really think, um, and not just like spinning stuff because you know that wasn't really the number one thing here, but it like also the grappling, everything wasn't really on point. Um, yeah, at 33, like I don't know what's happening with him. It just seems like since that Elvis Brenner fight, he can't really pick up any sort of great deal of momentum. It's just really unfortunate to see, I must say. But Kellen Lochran versus Natan Fletcher, I honestly thought that Kellen Lochran could have done enough, right? But this was a 50-50 one for me. I didn't really, to be honest, I didn't really pay attention too well when I was watching this, so my opinion here isn't greatly valid, but I mean, it's an okay underdog. Some people are saying robbery. I definitely think that about one other fight that I got wrong a couple fights ahead, but yeah, not too much to say about this one. Nathan Fletcher isn't really that interesting. Callan Lochran, not really either. He basically has a big clubbing right and maybe some grappling, sure, but otherwise, he's really not that good. Let's be honest. He relies on attributes at times, chin and power, to get him through these basics that he doesn't really have. To get him through like not having these basics, I should say. And then we move on to Shauna Bannon and Punja Tomar. Now, this one was my fight of the night, okay? Which is crazy that women's MMA is actually doing all right now, you know? But Shauna Bannon is, actually a decent prospect in my opinion. I think that she lost one fight via split decision, couple of fights back, which I honestly thought that she won. And I think that she's a decent prospect. She's pretty young, all things considered. For women's MMA, some of these women get up to the top at like 35, like Manon Fiorot. So I think that 31 is pretty impressive. She's just on the cusp of her rankings, in my opinion. And her sidekick style, I actually love it. I think it's very cool, and it's like Wonder Boy. It's kind of like a budget woman's Wonder Boy, where it's like you gotta keep them at bay. She does a really good job at that, and then similarly to Wonder Boy as well, she does these flurries with the punches when she feels like she's got the respect with the push kicks and all the teeps and all that, the head kicks even. And Punja Tomar, she was finding decent shots every now and again, but it was few and far in between. And when she did actually land in the second round viciously with a head kick, beautifully timed, I was actually like, oh, it's over, it's over. But for some reason, this referee was actually a good referee. I know, shocker, but in women's MMA, they seem to let it go on until it's absolutely over. It's absolutely over. And Punja Tomar, she just got armbarred. I didn't expect that, seeing as she has a more shorter, stocky build, but she just couldn't last. Just because you have attributes doesn't mean that you can't get subbed. Like people say that Volkanovski doesn't have a neck, and there is some truth there. Like it's a really hard spot to get into, but I think that really attributes aren't the end all be all. It's definitely technique, and she got that armbar pretty solid. So, I was predicting a decision, but I'm still happy with the win on this one. And, I really like Shauna Bannon. I like her personality, and I'm glad to see, I'm glad to see an actually entertaining woman on the come up right now. And moving on, we have Christian Leroy Duncan and Puliev, Andrei Puliev. Not much to say about this one, to be honest. I mean, Andrei Puliev just wasn't doing much in the second and third. He kind of kept it competitive in the first round, to be honest. And in the second round, for the beginning of it, he was actually doing quite well, I would say. But as far as, the momentum, it was clearly switching in Christian Leroy Duncan's way for the majority of the second and third. And, especially the third, he just kind of did nothing. Um, I don't really know how this guy got into UFC, to be honest. I mean, Christian Leroy Duncan did beat up on other similar opposition that actually got beaten up even worse in Dennis Tululin. But I mean, both these guys aren't really UFC material in my opinion. Andrei Poliev, yeah, he looked like maybe against another less skilled, less gifted fighter, he could do okay, but I don't think he deserves to be in the UFC. I mean, didn't he get in with a decision on the Contender Series? Like, too many of these guys are getting in with mediocre decisions. So that's how I feel about that. Christian Leroy Duncan doing what he does best, spinning stuff crazy, good clinch work, all of that. Even attempted takedowns of his own to try and maybe prove the doubters after his last fight. But I mean, yeah. And then Slick Mick Parkin should have got the win. He's a great fighter, but he lost tonight. That's what Tom Aspinall would have said, I bet. And, Mick Parkin, I think that he won this, okay? I think he won rounds 2 and 3. I even thought round 1 was almost 50-50, but I gave it to Marcin just based off of the massive body kicks that he was landing. Marcin Tybura definitely has some underrated body kicks. But one thing I have to say is that the physique of Marcin Tybura lately, compared to the Tom Espinal fight, I just watched that just before making this video. The Tom Espinal fight for Marcin Tybura, he looked actually like you could see a little bit of ab definition. In this fight, it was just a belly flop. It was just blob. He really showed that he was the king of the blobs tonight. And unless Shamil beats what is it, Sergey Spivak, and moves on to better opposition. I'd like to see Marcin Tybura and Shamil Lablabiev Gaziev, the real deal, big meal Gaziev. And, it's a good underdog pick, definitely. But I genuinely thought that Mick Parkin clearly won round 2. I think we can't debate on that. I think everyone agrees, but round 3, I mean, come on, no, it was definitely a close fight. It was definitely a close round even, but I mean, no question that Mick Parkin was landing slightly more significant. I think that's a pretty clear thing to say there. Um, you know, it's good to see a 39-year-old Marcin Tybura win. Always great to see the old heads win, but the big crafty vets. But yeah, I mean, Mick Parkin, I kind of have a theory that the UFC didn't really want, or, I mean, look, you can't really say that because this is up to the judges, but I do have a theory that, you know, it's better in the interest of the UFC that a training partner of Tom Aspinall doesn't get to the top, like, so that we don't have a not Marcin Tybura, Murab versus Aljamain situation where they don't want to fight each other. Because Mick Parkin might have the potential to actually become a top 5 guy. He is kind of like the new age Marcin Tybura. Or even if he doesn't fight the top 5 guys or enter the top 5 guys, he will sometimes fight some of these high level top guys. He's not gonna get out of the rankings anytime soon, in my opinion. I think he'll always be a top 15 guy until he's maybe out of it, until he's out of the promotion. But I mean, yeah, unfortunate to see. I genuinely thought that Mick Parkin got it done, but oh well. And then Lunar Kavanaugh, I mean, not much here. Lunar Kavanaugh, he showed that he is better timing, better entries into the pocket. He gets a little wild sometimes, but that's actually to his own success because he's actually faster when he just swings. When he tries to play it with the technical kickboxing range, Felipe Dos Santos can actually succeed on those departments when he's just sort of giving him his own way, having him dictate the pace. But Lunar Kavanaugh did not have that in the second and third round. Once he saw that the blood was flowing after that spinning elbow that Felipe dos Santos landed upon his scalp, he knew that he had to actually do something about it, and so he just went for it. You know, he was showing some decent technique, but there were moments where he was just kind of going into the pocket, just with faster, bigger combinations that ended up rocking Felipe. And then with his fight IQ, he eventually landed takedowns after that, with Felipe dos Santos thinking about the hands. So it's very good fight IQ for a young guy like Lunar Kavna. And maybe one or two more fights, seeing as this is flyweight, and we could get him into the rankings. Definitely a decent prospect to look out for. This one, very boring. Jai Herbert, I really don't know what he was doing out there, not striking at all in the first round. It felt like, at least for like the first 4 minutes, it didn't feel like he landed a single strike. Very disappointed in him here. At least Chris Padilla was trying to land strikes. He was actually like feinting, actually throwing. I know Jai was feinting as well, but it's like, come on, like you're the guy that's advancing. At least make it look like you're do a little more than advancing. This isn't boxing where Artur Beterbiev can win just off of pressure. You know, that's why Chris Padilla got the win at the end of the day. It doesn't matter that Jai Herbert cut Chris Padilla in the third, or maybe it was the second. I believe it was the third, and it doesn't matter that you were pressuring because ultimately Chris Padilla was better with his timing, and Jai Herbert just wasn't throwing enough. That's the ultimate downside of picking Jai Herbert. Sometimes you just don't know what kind of Jai Herbert you're going to get. But yeah, I mean, good pick from the people who picked Padilla. I feel like Herbert was a really good pick though as well. Nathaniel Wood and Morgan Charrier. I honestly think that this is closer than what people are letting on. I definitely think that 30-27 is a very fair scorecard. It's very normal. It makes sense. 30-27. But the body kicks were adding up in the second and third for Morgan Charrier. Now, granted, Nathaniel Wood was landing upstairs pretty well and consistently, and overall he was doing more, but the body kicks I think are very underrated for Morgan Charrier. I think he could have stolen the second or third off of the body kicks. I wouldn't have been mad at one of the judges giving out 29-28. Don't get me wrong, Nathaniel Wood definitely with the speed advantage rocked Morgan Charrier and did really good in the first round, but I mean, ultimately, this is just not something that I expected at all. I definitely expected Nathaniel Wood to be the faster guy. I mean, only slightly, though, because you've got to remember that Morgan Charrier in his last fight looked absolutely slick. He looked very calculated, and when he saw the openings, he definitely landed big. I think it was a left hook on Gabriel Miranda. And yeah, it just looked like he was so methodical and patient, and then he just sniped him. So I definitely expected a little more from Morgan Charrier, but I mean, all we saw from him was decent body kicks. And I mean, they were pretty impactful body kicks, you know. Definitely underrated body kicking. And it should be valued more in MMA. Which marching taburas were counted, so I don't know why in this fight they weren't really, but either way, I do think the rightful winner won. Okay, I'm not saying it was a robbery at all. That would be crazy for me to suggest such a thing. But what I am saying is it's closer than what people think. I definitely think that round three can be argued for Morgan Charrier, and round two was also a decent pitter pat, like clear Nathaniel Wood round, but like not as like dominant as people think. Okay, and Chris Duncan and Jordan Vucenic. And yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really watch a ton of Jordan Vucenic aside from the Guram Kutuladzé fight. I saw a few highlights from the Cage Warrior stuff, but otherwise I didn't really know too much. And I just know Chris Duncan as this big meaty guy on the feet, this big meathead. No offense to him, but like he's not the most technical guy. He has a clubbing right. I mean, Lucas Tracy really calls Tom Espinal a guy with just a decent jiu-jitsu and a clubbing right. But I mean, let's be honest. It's actually Chris Duncan who's more like that. If we're being honest, Tom Espinal's like if Chris Duncan was a heavyweight, but with like a little more fundamentals, I think. Chris Duncan, he's good. He's good. But you know if Jordan Vucenic actually kept things on the feet, MMA Guru is right in this sense. Like if he just kind of kept things on the feet, Leon Edwards he shot a sloppy takedown, but MMA Che, for example, brought it up like he does has done that in the past, but against Chris Duncan, it's just no reason to shoot takedowns when you're winning on the feet clearly in the second round. It's just like I don't really understand. Low IQ, low fight IQ there, and this is two not great losses in a row. The first loss, yeah, okay, it was short notice, whatever, benefit of the doubt, but yeah, this one was not great. And Chris Duncan, I think that he could be looking at a loser of Drew Dober and Manuel Torres, something like that. Although, he did lose to Manuel Torres, I'm pretty sure. But he's improved, I think. So maybe he could grapple him to a decent submission, maybe. I wouldn't be mad at that. Decent fight there. And Alexia Thernara and Molly McCann. I kind of liked her energy on the walkout, but then her post-fight celebration was kind of just disgusting, to put it bluntly. Molly McCann, she retired. Great to see. Great stuff. Um, yeah, I mean, she doesn't have jujitsu. We know that. Moving on. And Kevin Holland, Gunnar Nelson. This was a really fun one to see because everybody was picking Gunnar Nelson, and I didn't understand. Yes, Gunnar Nelson is really good on the ground, but this is Kevin Holland who is coming down from middleweight, who has felt these much stronger bodies, and meanwhile he's going up against these shorter guys who don't have as much strength to just twist Kevin Holland up like a pretzel. Okay, I'm using some Lucas Tracy terminology here, but he's Kevin Holland has underrated jiu-jitsu. He's got strong power, even though his fundamentals aren't all there. If he lands, it's devastating, and he almost finished Gunnar Nelson. If that happened in the second round, I would have been so happy. I would have gotten it on the dot. I would have gotten a second round TKO or vicious KO. I would have been on the money there, but not quite. It was very satisfying to see. This was my favorite fight on the card. Second was Shawna Bannon and Pooja Tomar. It was great to see that Shawna Bannon fight. It was a decent fight, but for sure, and in my opinion, fight of the night, which is maybe a hot take, but it's certainly like fun to see Kevin Holland win when people doubt. That's my favorite kind of win when you're the only one that's picking them. It feels like, and everybody's doubting them. That's my favorite kind of win. Gunnar Nelson definitely got a close submission at one point, and he had some good takedowns. But Kevin Holland, good power, better on the feet, and much longer, and he utilized that reach at moments as well quite effectively. So good win from Kevin Holland there. And I love to see people like MMA Joey seethe about it and other people. And I like to see Kenny Okoye seethe about Shauna Bannon as well. I just like the seethe and the cope. Carlos Hallberg and Jan Blachowicz. But this one, I'm going to have to be honest, maybe you could call this seething or coping. I don't think so because I'm pretty well mannered about it. But Jan Blachowicz, I thought that he won all three rounds. I thought it was pretty clear. I'm genuinely surprised that all these people online are saying that, oh my gosh, no, bro, it was a clear tit for tat 29-28 rounds 2 and 3 for Carlos Ulberg. Those people actually weren't paying attention. If you actually go back and rewatch the fight, which I did, it is actually insane how anyone could say that Carlos Ulberg won, let alone unanimously, let alone the fact that most people online are saying, no, bro. They're just saying that Jan Blachowicz won because they like him. Literally, Carlos Ulberg leg kicks were like, okay, that's how they sounded. They were like ticks. I don't know if you heard that. Maybe my microphone didn't pick that up, but there was like, it was so light. His little kicks to the thigh, Carlos Ulberg, and then sure he would land like a left hook every now and again, once in a blue moon, and a jab occasionally. But Jan Blachowicz, when he leg kicked him, it almost spun Carlos Ulberg every single time. You could just see it and hear it, and you could see on Carlos Ulberg's face he did not like it in the slightest. And people were pointing to a cut that Jan Blachowicz had in the second or third. I believe it was the third. And it's like, yeah, but that was to like a grazing punch. That was nothing. It was like, okay, are we really going? If it was like a brutal elbow against the fence, I'd be like, okay, that's a fair thing to point out when we're talking about like visual damage. But that was clearly just due to his age and just him having more scar tissue, being through more fights, being through more wars. It's just like that's not something to go looking at in the scoring criteria when Jan Blachowicz is clearly landing better punches upstairs, clearly doing more damage to the body, feet, legs, and head. And then in the end of the third round, where people say it's like, oh, I don't know, man, it was like all kind of 50-50 like the first round. But then Carlos Ulberg just took it out of nowhere because I think so. When people say that, it's like, yeah, have you not seen the last 10 seconds where he rocks Carlos Ulberg? Did nobody see that? And that was the clearly most significant strike of the whole fight. Definitely round one went to Jan Blachowicz. I think we all agree there. Round two was definitely the closest, but I'd still give that to Jan Blachowicz. Every single leg kick Jan Blachowicz was landing was far more impactful, and even the blitzes were not as counterable for Carlos Ulberg against Jan as despite me expecting that. I was really surprised, and the thing is, I definitely thought that Carlos Ulberg could have gotten it due to youth and due to this, that, and the other circumstances that Jan has had throughout his career, and that he's old and blah, 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 blah. But ultimately, the main thing that really made me think about picking him, it's like, when we talk about contenders, okay, we're not going to want to put Jan Blachowicz, if we're thinking about the UFC in their eyes here, we're not going to want to put Jan Blachowicz in a, like, what, fifth title fight that he's been in recent memory. We're not going to want to put Jan Blachowicz in another title fight if we're the UFC, or another title contention, number one contender fight against Yuri Prochazka. No, we're going to want to either put Yuri Prochazka after coming off of a two-fight win streak against Carlos Ulberg and Alexander Rakic in there against Magomed Ankalaev, or the winner of Magomed Ankalaev versus Alex Pereira, or we're going to get a Carlos Ulberg who wins a close decision after doing tit for tat or countering with a left hook against Yuri Prochazka in there with a Magomed or Alex Pereira. We're not going to want to put Jan Blachowicz because he's too old, he's not as hype anymore, this, that, and the other. We want a young prospect that's going to be able to rule over the division, and we're not going to want these fans saying, oh, well, Jan's so old, this is crazy that the division's regressing, like what the Weasel said in his podcast a week ago. So that's what the UFC's saying. Or at least behind the scenes, that's what I imagine they want. So even then, it's like, I sometimes you do have to look through the judges' minds, the UFC's minds, what they want. And I do think that's a real thing. You might not agree with me here, but I think that's a real thing that sometimes the UFC when they just kind of get what they want. So I knew that the decision would lean towards Carlos Ulberg if it got into the scorecards. So I just kind of knew that, you know, the UFC has a favoritism here with Carlos Ulberg. So, you know, I definitely expected it to go this way. If all else failed, if Carlos Ulberg lost 30-27, which he did, he was going to win anyway because he landed slightly more overall total strikes. And apparently he was advancing more in certain situations in certain rounds, which was a freaking stupid statistic that they pulled up. I don't even think it was that because I think Jan was advancing more, but there was some stupid stat that they were pulling up to justify the Carlos Ulberg win midway through the fight. But anyway, Sean Brady and Leon Edwards. I was really 50-50 on this one, and you could tell in my video because I was saying, oh, I don't know, it's going to be a split decision, 48-47 for Leon Edwards. And you could tell that I was like split down the road here. I was really close to picking Sean Brady, but ultimately it came down to me thinking that Sean Brady kind of implemented, or he was going to implement similar style to Colby Covington when in actuality it was more close to a Bilal Muhammad. Leon Edwards, he's definitely like a good grappler, but Sean Brady definitely reminded me of a Khabib. I'm honestly appalled to see that was it ITP MMA really said, "Oh man, I don't know, dude. I think that Sean Brady's just not a once in a lifetime elite talent like Khabib or Islam Makhachev." You're a retard if you think that. I don't mean to just disrespect ITP MMA like that, but that is actually one of the worst takes I've ever heard from him. He's actually decent, but that was terrible. Sean Brady really reminded me of Khabib here. If you just compare the way that they both ride out their opposition, if they just ride the leg, keep top position, just pressure the opposition, just lean over them, get on the back, and just don't risk positions. Don't risk going for unnecessary like unnecessary things like a Bilal Muhammad did in the Leon Edwards fight, where that was a 48-47 in the third round, I think it was. He went for the back take too quickly, and then it got reversed by Leon. Sean Brady doesn't really do that at all, it seemed, and he's much more methodical. He's very smart when it comes to the grappling itself, and obviously, Bilal Muhammad is better with the takedowns, and everybody knows this. If you watched any smart analysis, you know that he's got better grappling than Bilal, but worse takedowns overall, worse variety in them. And I must say, Brady really, I know that people love Khabib and they love to glaze him, but let's be honest. Sean Brady versus Bilal Muhammad is what Khabib versus Bilal Muhammad pretty much would have been. If we're being completely honest here, he would have just wilted to Bilal's pressure, even despite the fact that Khabib was definitely on the gear, on the sauce, whatever you want to say, as well. You know, he definitely was on something, so at least at one point in his career. So we definitely have to say that Sean Brady might not have been in his career so far. He definitely is a built guy, but it's definitely hard to say for sure, seeing as the pace that could be put in the past is crazy. But you know, I think that it's pretty safe to say that Bilal would beat Khabib. I know that the people just can't accept that, but people are coming around to Bilal being an underrated champion, and we'll see it now. Leon Edwards definitely won the third and the fifth rounds against Bilal, and so this was definitely a much more impressive performance. I just thought that Leon would be able to keep Sean at bay with kicks, teeps, knees. But Sean Brady had a great gas tank. He was able to pressure with the boxing. I thought that Leon would be a little better in the boxing, to be honest, because Sean Brady was landing on the arms a lot against Gilbert Burns, for example, who isn't the greatest these days, definitely out of his prime. But he's improving and he's young actually. He's 32, okay, so he can't improve that much more. But Sean Brady, I mean, great performance. He's like a welterweight Khabib in the modern era. So, I mean, great stuff to see. But even with a little better jiu-jitsu, arguably. Yeah, definitely not going to underestimate him in the future. But I honestly think another hot take here, people are underestimating Shafkat's chances against Sean and Bilal. I think that Sean is a harder matchup just because when it gets to the floor, he's going to really make Shafkat work to get back to his feet. But against a guy like Bilal, I think those knees in the clinch are going to be absolutely vicious for a Shafkat Rakhmonov because you got to remember, Shafkat has vicious knees in the clinch, and his clinch work is insane. So I know Bilal has decent clinch work as well, but I honestly think that people are underestimating Shavkat these days. So I mean, yeah, that's my thoughts on the UFC London card. Decent card, I'd say like a. I actually know it's kind of mid. I would say it's like a 4 or 5 out of 10. Anyway, that is my thoughts and breakdown and recap on this card. I'm really gonna have to get back to my winning ways. I think I had like 8 out of I had like 6 of my before I went on this streak of getting a few sixes. on predictions, 6 of however many fights are on the card. I think I used to get like something like 8 in a row consecutively. I had like 6, 8 8 correct picks on each card in a row, 6 of those consecutively, and now it's just 6 over and over. So I'm hoping that I can change that. Probably in this next card, I think. I think this next card will really change that. But you know, next time I think I'll do better. 6 of 13 picks, not great, but lots of upsets these days. These last few cards, I've done worse on picks because lots and lots of upsets. Okay, so thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Masked MMA out.